Good to go.
All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our Tech Talk today. Today we have another graduate joining us and they're going to talk about their experience. We have Stephen Fralix here with us. So thank you for being here, Stephen, and take it away.
Hi, I'm Stephen Fralix, and I went to the Tech Academy. I started last year, I believe in May. So after, I took some computer science in college, quite a long time ago. Ended up dropping out, doing some other things, trying out music, and bartending in Vegas for a while. That's kind of a good way to make money around here. And then just wasn't happy with my job situation. I was doing mostly gig work at the time, trying to get something that felt more like a career, something I could contribute to, be creative. So I started seeing that there were a lot of QA opportunities that a lot of schools and a lot of confusing information out there. But I ended up getting in touch with an app called Career Karma at some point. And Career Karma can be really helpful for anyone trying to get into tech. That's just everybody on there is trying to switch their career, do something that they love, and they have these live rooms similar to this where everyone can just talk and ask questions, and we can get an honest idea of what you need to do to get there. For me, I ended up choosing a boot camp. I just didn't think the self-taught road would work for me. And when I got introduced to the Tech Academy, I really loved Eric Gross and his style of teaching, and just the overall idea of the school. And it seemed like it was going to really help me. And I knew I needed someone to kind of guide my hand there a little bit. And to be honest, the job placement was really important to me as well. I kind of figured that I would be able to learn everything I needed computer-wise to get the job, but reaching out, the LinkedIn stuff,
One second, we can't hear you.
Hey, Stephen, go ahead and.
Now we can't hear you, Rick.
Yeah, I don't know why it keeps muting. Hang on. Hey, Stephen, can you unmute and try it?
Sorry about that.
No worries. I think it was just a glitch. Just go ahead. You're fine.
Okay, where was I? So anyway, in choosing Tech Academy, one of the most important things to me, I saw a lot of schools out there that offer these really intense, fast-paced curriculums, and I just don't think that's sustainable for anybody. You hear a lot of people talk about burnout in the industry, and that seems like a really good way to burn out really quick is going to some of these schools that do like 66 hours, but a week for 3 months, and then you want to go right into a job after that. And I get it. You want to work really hard, but that would have been a way for me to definitely burn out. So I like Tech Academy with a slower pace, with a work on your own pace sort of thing. And it turned out to work for me. I just, throughout the process, I tried to listen to everything they had to say. I came into it with as open a mind as possible. And for me, the job placement was one of the most important classes. I really enjoyed the weekly roundtables. Those definitely set me up for success. I'm not always you can probably see I'm a little nervous right now. I'm not always great at talking in front of people, and I just try and accept these things and go forward with it. But it was really helpful for me to be able to, every week we'd have the weekly roundtable and we could all just ask each other questions. And in that comfortable environment got me a lot more comfortable when I was able to finally have the interview. And I applied for 35 jobs and ended up getting one of them. It wasn't exactly in what I wanted at first. I started out learning Python and thinking that I was going to be super interested in Python and data science. So what I did is I set myself up to go just a little bit faster so that I could learn data science and software development in the 5 months. And at the end of it, I knew I wanted to do software development. So when I got offered a job in C#, I took it. And it's been a pretty crazy year there. I've learned a lot. I was able to write a lot of software there. And at this point, I'm kind of looking for my next thing. But yeah. What kind of topics come up at the weekly roundtables? It's based or so what we did at the time, there was usually a coding challenge that was set up that you would get a week in advance and you could work on the coding challenge. And I think we were doing a lot of JavaScript at the time. But then there would usually be 10 questions, and they were technical questions or they were personal type interview questions. And you could prepare beforehand, or you could just kind of try and spin it off. But we would just ask each other and then give each other feedback on their questions.
Great. If you guys have questions, please leave it in the chat. But Stephen, I have a question. So
Sure.
what were some of the things that you were doing throughout the program that kept you motivated? I know it's like pretty lengthy at times, especially if you're reading a lot throughout the day and doing a lot of projects. So what are some of the tips you could share with us to help you through that?
Yeah, I think the most important thing for me as far as success, coding, and this goes along with sort of your mental health and burnout, is time management. When I started at the Tech Academy, I made a real clear decision that I was going to work a certain time a day and stop at a certain time a day. And I was going to take breaks. And, the Tech Academy would recommend 40 hours. So I'd set up so I could do 40 hours a week. And that's really important for me because I want to be present as much as possible. When I'm working, I want to be working. When I'm not working, I want to be relaxing, recovering, recuperating. And I just find that to be the best way to get things done and to stay focused is to maintain that presence. And if I'm thinking about work while I'm at home, I'm not getting the home time that I deserve and need. And if I'm thinking about if on the other hand, I'm working so much that I'm not enjoying my time off, then I'm at work, and vice versa. So I'm not giving either the time I need. So yeah, time management, taking breaks. It's really important when you're coding to maybe every hour and a half to 2 hours at least, like get out of the room, walk around, kind of jog your mind. Try not to think about that stuff.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then Carly has a question. What was the interview like for the position you're in now?
So they did a screening interview over the phone where I talked with my direct supervisor, the software development manager. And then the interview is a single hour-long interview with the team where every team member gets to ask you 3 to 5 questions, either personal or technical. And then it just kind of becomes a conversation between everybody, hopefully. And that's the best outcome, really, is for it to become a conversation.
Got it. And then for some of the students that are currently looking for jobs right now, what are some advice you can give them maybe on LinkedIn, or how should they connect with recruiters, or how to apply for jobs? Do you have any advice for that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's kind of a numbers game. Just apply to a lot of jobs. A lot of you know, a lot of times there will be a position you don't think you're qualified for, but they might not find anybody more qualified. So, and if you apply for that job as well, they might have another position that you don't know about. I think networking is really important. You know, the best way to get a job, like I just lost out on a job recently because there was an in-person job, or I'm sorry, there was someone had applied that had already worked for the company, so they chose them over me. So a lot of places are looking for referrals. So the best thing to do is sort of network. That way you can have referrals at a lot of places. The more connections you have, the more likely you might know somebody that works where you want to work. And it can be a little discouraging. So it's helpful to just remember that you will get one, that everybody goes through this. You know, I was just talking to a guy who's sort of become my mentor at this point. He has 20 years experience in the industry, and he's going through the same thing. He's gotten a lot of calls, gotten a lot of rejections. And so you just need to go through. Don't get stuck on one job. There's a lot out there, and just keep applying.
Great.
Stephen, yeah, what was how many jobs would you say you applied for before you landed this first job?
35. I specifically remember that because the last assignment was to apply for 35 jobs. And I did, and I stopped at 35 because at the time I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to do data science. So I sort of finished the software engineering bootcamp early, and I finished the job placement part. So I did all the applying for jobs. And while I was taking data science, I was kind of answering all of those, you know, answering all those rebuttals, or not rebuttals, but doing the coding challenges and starting to take interviews. I failed a couple coding challenges, and then this one kind of came out of the blue a little bit late, and it went well, and they offered it to me. And at that point, I had gotten far enough into data science to know that I liked software a little better. So kind of just happened that it ended up being like the day I was supposed to graduate too. It was really weird. Just felt right at the time.
It all worked out.
Yep.
The way it was supposed to.
Yep.
Was that the first 35 that you applied for?
I believe that was in the industry. Yeah.
Like that was your first batch that you sent out was 35?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's good. Some people it takes longer. Like we've had students, you know, it takes them 100 or more that they apply for before they get the first job. But the kind of the point is just you got to keep applying, and the job will come.
Very true. And to be 100% honest with you guys, I'm really thankful for that job, but I have left recently due to some differences that I had with someone that was promoted directly over me, and I'm looking for another job. So it was great to get that job. I got a lot of experience there. I was able to write a lot of code, and I can now say that I had a job in the industry. But looking back, it might have been a good idea to continue applying and look for some other places, because there were some red flags in that job. They have quite a high turnover rate in the development department. I knew these things going in. Again, it was a really great experience, and at the end of the day, it was just not for me anymore. So I ended up leaving. And now I've applied to over 50 in the last week or so. So
there you go, and you got that experience now, and it's
Yep.
You got to find the right fit as well. So good on you for moving on to something that'll be better for you.
Yep.
Great. All right, some questions in the chat. So Sam asks, besides LinkedIn, where are you present that you feel is worthwhile investment as a coder? Do you actively contribute on GitHub, HackerRank, etc.?
So I gotta say no. but I kind of regret that. So you guys will hear some mistakes I've made here. GitHub really helped me get the job that I got. I know that because it was mentioned in my interview. Hey, you looked at, because I had put all my stuff from my live projects on the GitHub, and my GitHub was really active at the time. Over the last year, I haven't quite kept up with it, and now I'm kind of kicking myself in the butt for that. So I'll be getting back on GitHub soon. A lot of jobs do look for coding challenges, and if you're looking to get into any, FANG type company, I've failed a few coding challenges from those companies. So I definitely recommend being active on HackerRank or LeetCode, and that's something that I want to do better with in the future.
Yeah. Some of the attendees may not know what FANG is. You may want to let them know.
Oh, sorry. FANG is just a acronym we use to represent, like, it's Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, and now they usually consider a bunch of other. It's just like all the great tech companies you want to work at,
Yep.
All right, one more question. So Vicky Jones asked, did you know anyone in the company that you where you got a job?
I did not actually know. Yeah, no, I didn't know anybody at Ditronics. I think it lined up in my favor because I've worked in casinos in Vegas for a long time. And what Ditronics does is writes code we have a kiosk product that's like an ATM bill breaker in a casino. And we have a product that dispenses money from a safe for the cage cashiers. And then we have a dashboard product that manages all of those individual devices. And you can set config for all those devices as well. So yeah, the few things that helped me get that job was definitely interview practice. I mean, I somehow just went in there and nailed that interview. And I like I said, I really think it was from all that weekly roundtable practice I did, just asking questions, getting comfortable. I was still nervous as I could be, but that practice really helped me get through that.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Okay, looks like there's another question. Did you only have the live projects on your GitHub, or did you include the smaller exercises that we do during the boot camp?
I did include the smaller exercises, actually. I thought about that as well. And what I ended up doing at the end of the day, so yeah, my first thought was like, do I want to put all these projects on there that maybe I didn't even write, or are people going to think that I wrote them, or what are they going to think about these just little practice things? And I left all of them on there. I just ended up organizing them in a way so that when you go to my GitHub, you can see the ones I want you to see first. So at the end of the day, you might not want those to be first, but I think it's perfectly okay to leave them on there. Put as much up as you can.
Got it. And then Sherry's asking, which casinos did your product go into?
Oh, well, they just opened a new casino called Legends Bay in Reno. Ditronics also has a contract with Jackpot Jonies around town, which is it's kind of a small local casino that has like 30 or 40 machines and like one bartender, but they're like all over town in Vegas. There's got to be like 50 of them. Yeah, that's all I can think of off the top of my head.
Thank you. Okay, and then let me know if you guys do have any other questions. Also, feel free to raise your hand if you do want to ask your question verbally and not put it in the chat. But okay, looks like there's another one. Sherry, why would you not want to put the code you want people to see first in GitHub?
Why would you not want to put the code you want people to
I think they're referring to why would you not put like the smaller exercises you want in the beginning of your GitHub?
Oh
Like
no,
you
I'm saying you should. What I ended up doing, because my live projects I thought were more pertinent. So I sorry, I was reading the chat. So what I did is I just organized it so that when you go to my GitHub, what you see first is my live projects, just because I would rather someone go there and see the live projects and the work I actually did than maybe like the first hello world I wrote in Python, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. I
Does that
think
make sense?
yes.
Okay.
And then Vicky, now that you have experience, are you finding it easier to get interviews?
Yeah, it was a little quicker for sure. Yeah. I mean, I only have a year's experience. Even a lot of, Dev 1 jobs seem to be looking for like 3 or 4 years experience. And I was promoted to a software engineer 1 at Ditronics, but I think I'm getting stuck on that wall right now. I'm not really sure, but I have gotten about 3 interviews so far, and that's probably after applying for just 20 jobs in the first week. So yeah, a little bit more.
And
Well,
where are you looking for jobs currently? Are you mostly like looking on LinkedIn or just like a Google search or just through connections?
Mostly Indeed, honestly. My fiance does a really good job of looking on Indeed for jobs she knows I'm qualified for. She's pretty motivating for me. So she sends me quite a few jobs, and then I choose the ones I'm going to apply for. Yeah, high five to her, that's for sure.
Yeah,
got some good help. Got some good help there, Stephen.
I absolutely do. I would recommend that. You can get it.
all right. Sam is asking, when starting your career a year ago, what parts of C# or the workflow did you feel especially overwhelmed by? And and then they say that maybe you'd have wished to go over in advance, example like Microsoft Azure, Slack, Amazon Cloud, etc.
What parts of C# did I feel overwhelmed by? I mean, the math in C# is a lot harder than Python. There's a lot of converting. C# is a lot more verbose language, I would say. Whereas you can do a lot in Python in like one line. So going from that was real different. And then program main, using statements. When I got that job, I knew very little C#. That's another thing too. I had a lot of Python experience. I had written some cool stuff in Python, and then I did C# through just because it was part of the Tech Academy's curriculum. And I'm really thankful I did, because there's a lot of C# jobs, and I have a lot of fun with C# now. But I learned a lot of that on the fly working as well.
Definitely done a lot of good experience.
Yeah.
Looks like we got another question. What tech challenges did you encounter or overcame when making those casino products?
So the good and bad thing about the place I worked at was that it was pretty understaffed. So basically I would get these assignments and I wouldn't have a lot of, basically every assignment I got for the first 6 months, I can honestly say that when they told me the assignment, I had no idea how I was going to get it done. And I think, they talk about imposter syndrome, and that's kind of where it comes in, right? Is somebody asks you to do something and that's your job now. And they might not even expect you to get it done. Honestly, as a junior, for the first couple of months, there were really low expectations. It was like, the first 2 weeks was kind of uncomfortable. They were just like, here's a bunch of videos to watch, and here's our code, and get up to speed. But after that, they start giving you these projects, and they don't know exactly what you can do. They're just trying to feel it out, right? So at that point, I just take a couple deep breaths, remember that this is part of the process, that everybody gets imposter syndrome and everybody feels this way. And then I start looking it up. We were provided with a Pluralsight account. That's a real great place to go. So, if you told me, hey, I need to work on some front end UI, maybe I go on Pluralsight and learn about JavaScript for a while. And if it's some backend stuff, I just learn C#. One time I was asked to write a Windows service, and I've never written a Windows service before. So I watched an entire Pluralsight video on how to write a worker service or turn a background service into a worker service into a Windows service. And yeah, a lot of what I got was online. And sometimes there's not somebody at your job to help you with that either. I found out real quick that I became the Active Directory expert at my work somehow. Someone told me that about 6 months in. It was just because they had asked me to work on Active Directory. I'd done a ton of research, and we didn't have anybody else there that knew that. So it can be really easy when you get into those opportunities, you start to feel that imposter syndrome. It can be really easy to think like, I'm not good enough, and this is not for me or whatever. But if you can turn that fear into energy and recognize that it's opportunity, I think you can totally flip the script on how you feel, right? Like you can turn that negative sort of down thing into, oh my God, this is a great opportunity for me to learn and become more valuable, and I'm going to enjoy it along the way. It's a win-win-win, Did I answer your question? I can go off topic sometimes. I'm sorry.
No, all good.
All right.
Yeah, imposter syndrome can definitely be a thing, especially when you're starting out in this career. We actually do have a tech talk on imposter syndrome. Once I find it, I'll share the link in the chat where you can go look at it for some advice on that. It looks like Vicky has another question. So would you advise a junior developer who has never worked in the industry before to try to get a job in the office so they can get their questions answered? So like working in person, they mean, I think.
Working in person probably worked for me for that reason, but asking questions can be difficult because everyone has work to do. Whether you're working in person or remote, though, it's good to have like a time that you're going to ask questions and then write your questions down. So, like if you're going to ask your senior dev questions, he has, they might have a lot of work to do. So if you're just constantly going over their desk and saying like, hey, I need help with this, I need help with this, that might not be the best relationship. So what I found is that I like to start writing the questions down as I'm doing some research. So as I'm looking at your code, I probably got like a notepad open or notepad++, and I'm just saying like, okay, I'm writing questions. I might be coming up with answers to the questions as I'm writing them. That's another thing too. So by the time you actually have like a meeting and you can ask the questions, you'll have some really good questions. But to answer your question, I think you can learn remote as well. There's a lot of tools now that make it really easy. Like we would just do a screen share with Teams and I can show you the code that I'm working on and go directly through it. So even in an office environment, I mean, I'd find that 3 developers were sitting right next to each other on a Teams call more often than we were like sitting at each other's desk, for instance.
Thank you. So you said you were looking for a remote job this time around, right?
Yes.
Got it. All right, let me know if there are any more questions in the chat. Again, you can let me know by raising your hand. You can ask your questions actually. But I was gonna ask, so with the life project, how did that, what was your project exactly that helped you like learn something new and utilize that in your job today?
What was the project? It was like a theater company, CMS, and I did the comments section. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Like the live projects is just the first experience of figuring out how to do something on your own. So you're given an overall task and you got to break it down into parts. And then maybe you got to figure out those parts individually to put it all together. But then, sorry, what was your question again?
I was just asking what stuff you learned on your live project that you're utilizing today in your job. Like, what were some of them?
Technically, I can't like remember honestly, because you guys will notice once you start coding a lot that you're learning so much sometimes that someone will ask you about what you did 3 months ago, and you know you did it, but you can't remember exactly how you did it. You're going to have to look back at that code. So writing comments is really important. So technically, I couldn't 100% remember what I did on my live project, but it was definitely important, and just figuring out how to do stuff on your own, you know, without as much help, figuring out how to put the pieces together and start testing. Debugging is very helpful when you're figuring this stuff out.
Got it. Thank you. I know it was a while ago. You graduated in 2021, right?
It was really only a year ago, but I feel like
yeah.
I've written quite a lot of
65
codes.
days. It's a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sherry has a question. Do you prefer Teams over the conferencing tools or any other tools?
I mean, not really. Honestly, Teams, there was an issue with my Teams the entire time. A lot of my team likes to send GIFs to each other, and I was never able to see them. I had looked up how to see them. There's a way to clear your cookies on Teams that didn't work. I had tried many ways and it just never worked. So I'm not particular to those types of things. A lot of times when you get into a Microsoft sort of house, that means they're going to use Microsoft for everything, regardless of whether it is the best tool or not. It's just how they do it. So that's pretty much what that place was we used Microsoft for everything. Yeah, I couldn't see the GIFs ever. They started writing the explanation of the GIF above the GIF because they knew I couldn't see them. And other people had the same problem. It wasn't just me. A lot of us couldn't see GIFs. It's kind of frustrating. But it's not really work pertinent, so it's hard to complain about, you know? Like, hey, I can't see my GIFs. Can we use like Google Meet instead of Teams? Yeah.
All right, thank you. Let me know if there are any other questions, but another question. So I know you got your job right away kind of thing, but right now that you're applying for jobs, what are some of the things you're putting on your resume that, what are some tips you want to give to people to, you know, improve their resume so, you know, they can easier get a job or get an interview at least?
Some good advice I just heard recently from, there's this guy I follow on YouTube. If you're interested in C#, his name is I Am Tim Corey. Well, his name is Tim Corey. The channel is called I Am Tim Corey, just IAM. And he was saying how, you know, when you're thinking about a recruiter or an employer who's looking at these interviews, they're looking at a ton of resumes, and they're just not going to read any long-winded paragraphs that you put on there. They're mostly looking for keywords and simple things. So I think keep it short. Don't put too many technologies on there because, you know, for instance, I just started learning C++, and I made the mistake of putting it on my Indeed resume, and now I'm getting a lot of you know, C++ jobs in my inbox, and I'm just not qualified for it. I learned C++ kind of on the side for fun, and but if you put it on your resume, they'll ask you about it, and if you don't know about it, it'll look worse. So I say put the things on your resume that you know and you know well and can answer some questions about. And keep it kind of simple. Put like bulleted points. Like I did a lot at Ditronics, but I didn't add, a whole page to my resume. It was like wrote a Windows service that does this, wrote a few APIs that does this, just in like simple sentences, because yeah, just what I've been told is that they don't really have time to read through all that. You want to just pop out.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Please let me know in the chat.
Hey, Stephen, can you kind of give advice on the best way to handle coding challenges and kind of what that was like for you when you did your coding challenges?
Yeah, so coding challenges can be kind of hard. I find myself way better at doing like just actual tasks than coding challenges. But one piece of advice that was given to me that I thought was really good was to, if you can't figure it out, well, this is when you're doing it for a job, right? When you're practicing, you're just practicing. But when you're actually going through the interview, you can write comments in there explaining what you were going to do. It's okay to turn it in not all the way done, or maybe you get it to a working point, but it's not the best way. They're looking for how you solve problems, not necessarily do you have the best answer for this specific problem, if that makes sense. And I know when they do like whiteboarding challenges, which I haven't personally done a whiteboarding interview, but I know a lot of what they're looking for is, are you open-minded? Are you, and how can you solve problems with a team too? Because a lot of times they'll be helping you out with it. So if you're doing a coding challenge with a person, or even in an interview, feel free to ask them questions, make it a conversation, become interested, especially if you don't know something, become interested in that thing, right?
Got it. Thank you. Looks like we got a few more questions in the chat. If you were to have more than one company desire to talk to you, what's a good amount of time to space between them?
Like for interviews?
I believe so. Why don't you reconfirm that in the chat, Sherry? Yes, she said. Like for interviews.
I would say take as many interviews as you can. Every interview, even if it doesn't go well, is just practice. That's kind of how you got to look at it. There's, again, it's just a numbers game. Oh, for take-home tests, yeah, I don't know. They usually only give you like 2 hours to do those anyway, those take-home tests. So it's kind of about being ready for them. And again, I think the real trick is just being able to let the failures slide off pretty easily. And if you have a bad interview, the best way to get back on the horse is to do the next interview.
Got it. Thank you. And then Vicky's asking, I'm trying to improve my skills. Would you recommend becoming really good at just a few languages, or dabbling in lots of them and just becoming average at these ones?
The first one. I think you should probably be good at like one main coding language. So like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript kind of seem to go with everything. You're going to need to learn those. When it comes to choosing between a high level language like C#, Python, or C++ or Go or any of those. I think it's better to spend time on one language. And I can tell you from experience that, learning Python and having my foot in that at the same time as having my foot in C# has made me not as good at either. And I think going forward, I want to focus on a single language and learn it very well. And then in the future, possibly learn another language after that. But quite honestly, I don't think I'm good enough at C# yet to be learning C++ as I have lately. So my goal going forward is to stick with C+ or stick with C# for a while until I get really good, and then maybe branch out and learn other languages.
Got it.
Thanks.
Thank you. And then we have another question. Seth is asking, what is the format of a typical coding challenge, live or online, access to internet, etc.?
So I did a coding challenge for a company in town here, and they asked me to write a simple API. I remoted into their system. You do have access to the internet, but you're not really allowed to click out of the browser. So it's kind of weird to me that in my entire year of working and all the coding I've ever done, I've had access to the internet and Stack Overflow or YouTube or anything. And when I ask other developers, it's always about here is, you're going to be on Google all the time. That's just the job. The job is a lot of research. You're not always going to remember everything, and then things change. So if you learned something a couple of years ago, it might be obsolete already. There might be a better way to do it. But that being said, a lot of the coding challenges I have taken do not seem to reflect that. They're looking for you to kind of know the stuff already. And that's why I say don't worry necessarily about finishing it, right? Worry about finishing it, but don't stress out about it. So if you get to the end of a coding challenge and there's one part you don't know and you could look it up, just leave a comment in there. Just say hey, I need to look up the exact sort method to use here. And I don't have it off the top of my head. And I think that would be helpful. One mistake I made in one of the coding challenges I took for Amazon was I spent a lot of time on one question because I kept thinking I could get it. And after 2 hours, I did not finish it, and time ran out of me, and I ended up sending in almost nothing and getting nothing back. So, pseudocode is better than no code, right? Write some comments in there, say what your ideas are, and that'll be better than nothing.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you. Question, which operating system do you prefer to use?
Windows, but I can't say I have any reason for that other than I've been using it for so many years and it's comfortable. I had an Android phone for a long time, then I had an iPhone. It just wasn't comfortable, so I just went back to Android. It's not because iPhones are better or Androids are better. It was just I found things so much easier to do on Android because I knew where it was. And that's kind of how I feel about Windows.
Have you tried some Linux?
No, I haven't. I would like to. There's so many things I would like to learn. There's just not enough time in a day,
No, there's not. Definitely not.
Yeah.
All right. Let me know if there are any other questions in the chat. Or
So
again,
just curious. Yeah, just curious, Stephen, are you doing any contract work on your own? Like websites or that kind of thing?
I plan to soon. I got really caught up in this job over last year. I worked really hard for them. I didn't do much else. I'd say that was probably not the best idea. I should have been learning a little more. I wish I was building something on the side a little bit, but those are just mistakes we make, and we can only try to do better in the future.
Yeah, the more and more experience you get, you can start thinking about doing your own work and your own contract work. And we do have students that have gone into business for themselves after working for a company for a couple of years.
Yeah, that'd be cool. For sure. I'd be interested in doing that in the future, or even consulting. I think would be really interesting and fun to kind of go into a company, analyze what they have going on, and try to help them out, make some high-level decisions. I think that'd be cool too.
Consulting usually pays well.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. Yeah, that's a 10-year goal though, maybe a 20-year goal.
Make it 5.
Well, if I can do it in 5, Rick, that'd be awesome. Just trying to give myself some time.
All right. Well, let us know if there are any questions in the. You can leave your questions in the chat. We do have like 9 more minutes. But also, I wanted to see if I can share your LinkedIn, Stephen, if in case someone has any questions outside of this talk, would that be a good place to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll share that in the chat.
Definitely on there very regularly as of late.
Perfect. And then also next week we have another tech talk. It's one of our graduates, Nixon, and he is going to be doing a talk on their experience and basically giving his perspective on how to have a great mindset doing code before and after graduating. So check that out. I just shared a link in the chat. That's where you can RSVP. But if there are no other questions, this is pretty much the end of the talk. Thank you so much, Stephen. We really appreciate it, and good luck on the job search.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us, and I hope to see you guys next week.
Yeah, great talk, Stephen. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And yeah, we're definitely happy with your success, and things are going to be good for you. So
thank you. Appreciate that. Yep. And I'm always thankful to Tech Academy. That was the curriculum was very helpful. I learned a lot there, and yeah, it's a great experience.
Yeah. Well, I liked your thought about fear, turning fear into energy and opportunity. I thought that was that's something I'll remember.
I love that. When I can do it, it can be difficult, but it's the best way.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks.
Bye, Stephen.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Yep. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone, for coming out, and we will see you next week.
Bye, guys. Have a good weekend.